So welcome back, Harvey.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Lucas. I'm very happy to be here.
So I invited you again to specifically talk about DJing. And we had two interviews before. I think they were very interesting, and they were mostly about your history and also about some opinions or experiences in tango. But we never really focused much on the DJing aspect. And for you, that's also an important part of your tango life.
Yes.
And you're a popular DJ, so I'm glad. I'm sure a lot of people will love to hear about your thoughts and experiences when DJing. And so can you please give me a little overview, like reminder of who you are for the people who haven't seen any of the other interviews?
Certainly happy to do that. So I'm a native New Yorker, but I came to the Washington, D.C. metro area in 1984, and I've been there ever since. I had a rich research career as a research economist and methodologist. I started in tango in about 2011, and I participated in tango events in North America, Europe, and Buenos Aires. And I've organized some smaller tango events in the United States, and I DJ at practicas, milongas, encuentros, marathons, festivals, special occasions. And DJing has become my passion. I love tango, and I look forward to continuing in this endeavor for hopefully as many years as possible.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
So can you tell us how you originally started DJing?
Yes. Well, even before I started DJing, I collected quite a bit of music, and I was interested in DJing. And so I decided I should develop some tandas. So someday I'll DJ and I'll be kind of ready. And I developed my library. And then when I got to the point where, let's say I had some tandas for all the orchestras, let's say in Michael Lavoca's book on musical secrets and all that, I felt like, well, maybe I'm getting ready and I'm almost there. And then I would develop some lines and a few simple playlists. And then I said, well, I'm going to go out and try to see if I can DJ at a practica. So I learned about a new practica and I went there. And they had a DJ and people were practicing and dancing. And I spoke to the organizer and said, I'd like to DJ here sometime. And she said, okay, sure. How about next week? And I said, okay. So I went there the following week. And she also alluded to the fact that they really needed a teacher. And I noticed the people dancing there were several really developed dancers. And I said, well, maybe they would want to teach. And she said, no, we would like you to teach. And I said, I'm not really a tango teacher. But I said, okay. And I said, okay, because no one else would do it. So I did it. And then for 2 years, I was their DJ, but it's for every week. And then how did it start? Well, it started, with her asking me, but when she asked me, at the end of the first time I DJ'd there, everyone came all around me and surrounded me in this corner, and she was out front. And she said, we'd like you to be the DJ. And the other DJ that they had was standing there, and she said, and it's all right with her. And I said, sure. And so I started DJing there. And then I DJ'd at a couple of the better known, larger practicas. And then organizers heard me, and they invited me to DJ at their milongas. And then at the milongas, somebody from organizing a marathon or people like that heard me, and they invited me there. And then there might be somebody organizing an encuentro at the marathon and then invited me there. And it sort of snowballed, all word of mouth, because I don't know how to promote myself. So that's, sort of how I got started. Yeah.
That sounds like the best way to be promoted, right?
Well,
if it just happens, well, maybe not the best way, but in some ways it's nice if it's just natural. If you don't need to actually push to become invited everywhere.
Well, I'm happy about that. But in some ways, I I think I wish I knew I knew how to better promote myself, but I don't focus on that. I'm so focused on doing what I love and for the people that I can't get too involved in anything else. So I'm very happy and lucky. I feel fortunate, and I think it is a good way. Yeah.
So can you maybe explain what the teaching stuff was about? Did they mistake you for a teacher?
No, they didn't mistake me. They understood that somebody that I knew how to dance, decently, in a simple way. And when the first time that I taught the lesson, well, first of all, it was a big challenge for me to teach, and I felt really concerned, and I actually practiced myself, before giving a lesson, because I felt, look, I can be much more developed in terms of posture, in terms of step, in terms of technique. I have to at least do something simple and do it to the best possible way and be a good example. And so I did teach, but not Argentine tango. I taught economics and statistics at colleges for a while. And I always got good reviews as a teacher. My research, was really good, but I wasn't highly articulate. So my teaching really was really strong. And I just broke things down when I taught the tango in simple ways, because that's what I needed. And it worked for a lot of people. But the real challenge for me was sometimes it was like what in the United States was a one-room schoolhouse. And many years ago, where you had people at all different levels. So you'd have some people have zero experience with tango, don't have good balance, have never danced anything before. Then you have some people been dancing for 5 years, kind of an intermediate level, and they want to learn more stuff. But so I was doing this at a community center, and they came in, and you have all this going on in the one class, and it's challenging. So for 2 years I did it, and I'm very happy. But my DJing developed because I gave myself assignments. So my assignment was to myself, and this, I'm not necessarily recommending this to anyone else, was the first time I DJ, then to the second time, 80% of the songs have to be different. And then keep that up for a couple of times. And then 60% of the songs have to be different from all the few others that I've done, and then 40 and 20, and then always thinking about refreshing it. And that was my assignment. Did I have to do it for the dancers? No, but I wanted to do it for them, for the future and other dancers. And so I stuck to that, and that helped me not to get lazy and to focus more on the music. I might be going overboard with my responses, so just stop me anytime. Okay.
I wonder, so can I conclude that DJing was more important to you than teaching, so you stopped teaching? Is that?
I'm not a teacher. Yes, it was more important. I only did it because no one else would do it, and it was at a community center, and I could see that there were many people that really needed it, and it wasn't close into Washington, D.C. It was further out into Virginia, and I thought, this is something else it's good that I can do, and also gives me a chance to DJ and maybe, in quotes, experiment a little bit to learn myself some more as well. And so I thought it's a good opportunity all around.
So that's pretty much how you learned to DJ, simply by having the opportunity to experiment and
that's how I started. That's how I started, but I'm still developing. And so with that, I took courses online in musicality, Horatio Godoy, and people like that, and Michael Lavoca, and sometimes I would listen to Tango by Ear that he did, which he's absolutely amazing the way he does that. I would take some online courses in tango history. One good one I had, well, there's more than one, but certainly Michael Lavoca has good one. And then there was a music professor at Reed College that they have some tango events, and he's an historian. I did that. And so I would do some online courses. I'd read books, Michael Lavoca's books, other books, one from Oxford University Press. It's a little bit on the high end in terms of musicality, maybe a little bit over my head, but maybe some people would, like that type of thing. And then one thing that I found very helpful is this encyclopedia. the Encyclopedia of Tango by Gabriel Valente or something like that. And so, so there's so many orchestras in there. I'm not saying it has 100%, but it has so many. And the discography is great. And then they indicate which musicians were playing over certain periods of time. And so these kinds, so reading, online courses, dancing myself, taking lessons and taking these courses help tremendously, because there are a lot of knowledgeable people out there that share their knowledge, and it's beautiful in tango the way that happens.
So it sounds like you had a full-time job.
Well, I had to dive in. I had the time because basically retired or semi-retired. I do a tiny bit of consulting work. And so starting out in tango as an older adult, or at least, not a young person, and feeling the passion and how wonderful it is, I wanted to delve in quite a bit. So I do put, a substantial portion of my waking time into tango. Yes.
So what year did you start with this DJing, with the practica?
Oh, the DJ, I didn't start till 2017.
Oh, really? Okay.
But in the first 2 years, I've DJed about 150 times. So that, not a lot, but it's the first 2 years I got a fair amount of experience. And I also gave myself these assignments, which were I pushed myself kind of hard, and I still do, but I'm at a point where I sort of follow my heart more, and I'm more relaxed about it, and I enjoy it a lot. But that's when I started in 2017.
Okay. And you started dancing in?
I started in 2011.
Okay.
If you want to call it dancing, the first couple of years, it's much dancing in it.
Yeah, I guess it is. But okay, that's good to know. So, but you just told me how you learned about music, but there's also a more specific layer to it, that is learning how to DJ as well. So how did you go about doing that?
Well, I did take a couple of courses online on DJing, but that's not really how I started. There was one by, I can't remember his name, by a Russian DJ that was pretty well known and very good, clear presentation with slides. But what I realized was, and it was more like 101 DJing or maybe 102 DJing, and I realized that I do all those things, or basically, very similar to the things which is reinforcing, it's good. But I also went online to learn about DJing. And there's one place, can't remember the exact site, it's something like World Press, I don't know if it's worldpress.org or something like that. World Press is one word, WORLDPRESS. And there's a lot of information about tango community development, about tango in different settings, milongas, encuentros, etc. This information about community organization, tango community organization and development, but there's also information on tango DJing. So in terms of developing a set of orchestras, in terms of expanding upon that, in terms of breaking down the music in the old guard, the golden age, the post-golden age, nuevo, and there's also information about building a tanda with examples. There's also information about developing the mood of the tanda or the flow of the tanda over lines of the music. So I read things like that. And just like I gave myself assignments when I first started out at the practica about, only doing 80% different, 60, et cetera, as time goes on. You can't do 80% different if you have like 1,000 songs. But anyway, and I looked at the examples that they gave, and I didn't always agree that they were the best for me to use, but I learned from them. And sometimes I developed similar tandas. But what I'd also say is I felt it was very well presented on that site, the World Press site. And this is, I can't remember the number of their volumes that focused on that, but anyone that can go to that site and find it. but I liked the way it was described, and I liked the conventions, the way they were explained. And also the person that wrote it, always had almost always had a caveat that this generally will work, but, it depends on the DJ's particular site and, and experience with the group and all that, which I thought was beautiful. And that's, and so I related to that. And I, joined a forum, and then some related groups like Tango Cortinas, and just getting more involved and active, and with some, not all, communicating with other DJs and that type of thing, or sharing, not heavily, but sharing some music, sharing, issuing a comment or something like that. And so those are the kinds of ways. And then listening to other DJs' music. I think a lot of DJs learn by listening to other DJs' music. And I think we all learn from each other. So I started to go to Milongas more, listen to more music, listen to music at home, listen to music everywhere, in my car, everywhere I could. And that's pretty much how I learned. I can go through more, specific examples, but I have some challenges in learning things in general, and I try to focus on my strengths to overcome those.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm jumping ahead or something like
No,
that.
I think that's a good questions. Okay. So you mean like the strengths and your weaknesses, how you use them or avoid them, or to become a better DJ, for example?
Yes, because for me, it's like life in general. I have to focus on some of these types of weaknesses in order to survive, or at least thrive well. And so in particular for Tango 2, I'll focus on my weaknesses first. But my strengths basically are—
what are your weaknesses?
Okay, the weaknesses, I have a very poor facility for foreign language, and I have a poor facility for remembering names of songs, names of people,
okay,
names, period. And even if all the tangos were, the titles were in English, I'd still have trouble remembering the names. So this is sort of, hopefully this will actually be encouraging for people that might, be starting out or interested in DJing, because if I can do it with these impairments, I think they'll have more confidence. So for example, going back to maybe before your time, when Word, was a very new type of word processor, but WordPerfect was, well established, and it was far superior at that time to Word. And there would be a lot of commands in WordPerfect to do all different kinds of things. And I had trouble remembering, and when there's no logic attached to why one function or one command would do certain things, I have trouble, remembering it. So I would learn 3 or 4 functions, and then usually I would develop a system where I could do all of the new functions, and there could be 18 or 19 of them with the 3 or 4, but I needed more steps. In middle school, when I was learning algebra, I developed a generalized approach to solve equations from like 4 or 5 chapters, even though the equations were all different. And even though my approach was less efficient than any one of the single approaches that were used, I didn't have to memorize formulas. It was just a natural process for me. And I could think maybe one other example. Let's see. Oh, yes. Even when I was a young adult, when I was studying for my comprehensive exams for my doctorate. So you have to be prepared to cover several years of coursework. And I realized that if somebody asked me, what's the Pacu effect or some other kind of effect, I'd go, oh, I don't know what that is. It's not that I don't understand what it is. It's that I don't remember the name. And so I used to have to study. A lot of people had to relearn or try to learn certain things to be prepared for the exams. I didn't have to do that. I wrote the names of these effects, and then I would write in 2 sentences. I'd look up the name, how I understand it, and then I would know which one was which. Or if I had to write a long exam, which we had to write for a few days, let's say of writing all day, it doesn't hold water to say, oh, in this article with the maroon and white journal that's sitting in the pile underneath my table where I work, third from the top, there's a yellow sticky right where that article is. Do I remember the name of the article? No. So I had to go back and learn these things. So in DJing, so sometimes in my library, I would capitalize one of the words in the title of a song, because I know I like that song. I could put a heart next to it or something like that, but I have different ways of coding the information that I see visually. Then I hear a song, somewhere, and I say, I like that song, but I'm thinking of some other songs that would really go well with it. I haven't heard that at the Malanga, but I think, and I can't remember the names of the song, but I could generally remember the orchestra, the year of the orchestra. So it's still easy. And so I go to my library and I say, oh yeah, I have that one capitalized. I'm going to put, I put them together that way. I recognize them that way. I know it's very strange and it's fine. And then sometimes when I'm less sure of the year or the orchestra, because it could be one or two or three, possibly, depending on the time frame, instead of going to my library, I find it easier. I have chunks of playlists. They're so-called playlists. They're not really playlists. They might be 40% or 110% of what I already played somewhere. But I remember that I played that song that I'm looking for then. So I go to that playlist and then it's easy to find the song. So I have a lot of challenges, but this works well for me. As strange as it seems, I wouldn't recommend it for anyone else unless you have the same kind of impairment about not having a facility for foreign language and you have trouble remembering names. But I'm a lot like, if you ever read the book, The Little Prince, the French author, he was a pilot and his only book. And so his only book, I think that he wrote, maybe one other. And so people might talk about the banker on the street, Mr. Jones, or somebody like that. And you talk to a kid, a child, and you say, oh, you know Mr. Jones? And they go, no, I don't know Mr. Jones. You're the banker. No, I don't know the banker. And then they say, wait a second, are you thinking of the fellow that always wears the tweed suit, that has a smile, who has a red carnation in there, that has the bushy eyebrows, that always says good morning, hello to everybody on the street? Oh yeah, I'm more like those kids. I know the substance, what's in there, but I have no clue what the name is. And so it's a handicap, but I get over it.
And what exactly is the strength in the story? That you can organize things a certain way.
Right, that can organize things in a simple way that might not sound simple to other people, but I rely on having a few simple ways of identifying something rather, than trying to fixate, oh, what's the name? I'm going to look at all the names in my playlist, in my library. I'm going to try to find it, so I have some things that sort of help me. But sometimes I plan to have these things. I actually design something that will help me overcome these kinds of weaknesses. Yes. That's a strength, in a sense.
Yes.
I don't know what you want to call it.
Yes. Well, I've noticed that you have quite an academic approach to certain things, but I guess that's just a crossover from your profession, a previous profession, or maybe semi-previous.
Right, but, exactly.
So I think that that's likely to happen in tango. Like you get some really highly educated individuals, and they especially if they retire, they have all this life strength in a way, and they put it in something new that they're really passionate about, and then they become good at what they do as well. So
right. So we have a lot of baggage. Some of it might be positive, but you have to make things fit. If I started out, and my parents were performance dancers in Buenos Aires, and I've heard the music in the womb, it might be, and I want to DJ, it might be a lot different than what I'm doing now.
Yeah. But if it works for you, that's fine, right?
It works for me.
So do you have maybe some more, because this is not really advice for people, because it works for you, but it's probably not working for others. So
well, if they can overcome, if they can think about what their strengths and weaknesses are, that's very helpful. But what I would say, okay, so for DJs perhaps that are starting out, Okay. Getting to the point where you're developing tandas is very helpful. People have spoken to me about wanting to learn how to DJ, or some DJs that have been DJing, and particularly the ones that haven't started, and they're thinking, well, I want to get the highest quality music, and I want to learn this kind of a particular software, and I want to read about this, and I want to read about that, and all these things are good that they want to do. But sometimes people never get around to starting, or, and they say, well, can you help me with this, or give me advice on this? And I can, or can I shadow you? Can I do, things like that? And I say, all these things are possible, but if you keep on thinking of all these different things and you don't get down to developing tandas, you're not going to be ready. It's going to be more challenging. And I've seen people that sort of like, they go through this over and over, and they just don't want to start. Now, in a sense, they're holding themselves back. I'm not saying this is the only way, but I think for a lot of people, just starting to, craft.
It's very typical. Yeah, it's very typical.
Will help. Yeah.
That's also typical in life. Like, there's so many people with all these great ideas and these great plans, but they actually never do something.
Right. And so sometimes if I can do something in some ways that might be, I'm not going to have, let's say, when I first start DJing, not that I have it now, pristine quality files, all of them. They're not just, it's not going to happen. If I try to do that, I'd never start. So that's the thing, sometimes the perfect can be the enemy of the good. And that's something I have to keep on telling myself, because I do generally follow conventions to a large extent, but not fully. I follow my heart, but this didn't start. I didn't start that way. And sometimes if you think about trying to do every single thing just the way, a lot of people have said it's really good, and sometimes it is really good, you might be blocking something in yourself that can create what could be the very best in you, and people might like it. That, in very general terms, that's what I would say.
Just saying that following, sorry?
Go ahead. I don't know if that is answering your question enough, so.
Well, yeah, it's actually a different question I have, but like about convention. So
Right.
Would you say that what you just told me, would you say that in general, like following conventions might also, too much might also maybe take away your individual character or something? Or
That's a good question. I think that there are all different ways about going about this. And some people, and I'm pretty traditional in my view, but some people might be, I'll give you an example, no names or anything like that. So I know one person that has DJ'd, currently lives in Buenos Aires, but is originally from the United States, instructor, tango teacher, but DJs quite a bit. He would have, he would only play a tanda if all the songs in the tanda were from the same year, from the same orchestra. And he would analyze the beats per minute, and there'd have to be, going in ascending tempo, so that the tempo would pick up, and not too much. And that would have to be the way the tanda would be. Can you be a very good DJ with that? Yes, you can. You can. But do you have to do that? In my opinion, no, you don't have to do that. Okay. So there's different extents to which you can follow what I'll call conventions, because I really don't see rules. I can't, the closest thing I could see to a rule that I could think of, it's not really a rule, is not to mix vocals with instrumentals. But that's not really, it's still not a rule. It's not a rule. It's maybe a convention. And so, but what I did for quite some time was I've tried to follow conventions really carefully, as sort of, this is like, it's a yardstick, for me, and it could be a yardstick for everyone else, but other people might not like to approach things in sort of this very methodical way, or they might be very artistic and they don't need to think about conventions, but I needed it to keep myself on task. And I still, and to feel as though I'm doing the right thing, because as I'm learning and developing, and I still consider myself as a sort of a perpetual student, I might have somewhat a, level of experience. I want to respect as best as I can the traditions, the codes, and that type of thing. And so particularly in starting out, staying close to the conventions was very helpful. But then sometimes I would hear something, I'd feel something, this sounds so good. And I would say, oh, but it's not exactly the way in terms of the convention I should do it. I'm going to try it. And I tried it, and it, those kinds of things, and it works really well. But I still, I'm pretty cautious, pretty cautious compared to a lot of people. But I don't think there's any one right way, but I do think it can stifle your artistic nature and your development if you're not the type of person that only feels comfortable with conventions. If you're the type of person that feels comfortable with conventions and that's the way you want to do it, it wouldn't stifle you because it's very compatible. And I'm somebody who likes to break out sometimes, but I want to be respectful. And so I don't think it's stifling for me to stick with conventions to a large extent, but I prefer not to feel as though I have to go, 100% of the time with nobody disputing that this is a convention in any way I've done it. And so that's the best way I can explain it. I think there's a lot of individuality here.
So is there maybe, I've understood by now that you're not really good with names and everything, but would there be some kind of practical example that you can talk about of maybe something you did in your career where you felt, now I'm going to follow my heart? Instead of a convention. So well, if you don't want to talk about, that's fine.
No, I'm happy to. In tango, for example, one time, this is one of the first times I guess I didn't follow what I consider to be kind of a convention, where you're not, generally looked upon well if you mix orchestras, even though that could be. And so I had a 4-song valse with 4 different orchestras: Tintori, DeSarli, Rodriguez, and I'm blocking on the 4th one. And I put them together and I said, I was just listening at home, just playing. I wasn't even thinking about necessarily using it at a moment. I said, this sounds so good. But I was saying, oh man, this is 4 different orchestras. And I played it and people liked it a lot. And I said, you don't always have to follow the convention. And so that was it. And then, I have experiences. I remember one time I played, I very rarely do this. Maybe I've done this twice, mixed vocals with instrumentals. One time I did it because the instrumental was, in quotes, instrumental, was La Composita, and the last tanda was Biaggi, and it had Jorge Ortiz singing in the last like 15 seconds of, and I think that will, people are not going to be disturbed, and people liked it and all that, and I felt, okay, it's not so bad to have a little bit of, and then, but one time I had 4 orchestras and a 4-song tango, and 3 were vocals, and one had, again, like maybe 20 seconds of singing with Damare, and I had it with OTV, Lamuto, and Carabelli, and I think OTV or something like that, and people liked it, and I saw one DJ there dancing, and he liked it. But he came up to me and he said, "You mixed orchestras in that tanda." And I said, "Yes." He said, "Why?" Because I'm following my heart, and I thought the dancers would like it. And he said, he just nodded his head. So those are examples. It might not be examples overcome maybe a fixation or close to a fixation about conventions, because again, being aware that I have understanding of very little Spanish, I look up translations and I look for good translations of some of the tangos, and I want to be real careful. And so I think carefully about these things, but I just overcome it in this way by going with my heart and listening to things that seem really good. And so that's the best explanation I can give.
So I guess that keeps it interesting for you as well, in a way.
Oh, it keeps it very interesting, because I feel now or at least in the last couple of years, I can focus on developing music for milongas in ways that I didn't before. I feel like I've sort of, had myself with one hand tied behind my back. Maybe that's a little bit strong, but now I feel I'm free and I'm just there. I feel more comfortable. I always wanted to focus on the dancers, but now I feel more comfortable, on focusing on the dancers, and I don't feel fettered in some way, or I'm unfettered. Yeah.
Okay. So that's pretty much the well, that was the previous question actually, but so the advice part. So the advice part was mostly for new DJs, like make tandas, practice, and maybe for everyone else, there was a bit of advice about following conventions or not. I guess we could interpret that as an advice, maybe.
But also listening to other DJs
as well.
And taking courses, if they interest you, it could be about DJing, could be on musicality, could be on tango history. It all is very helpful, and they're online, and there are also books that you can read. And so, that's fine. For DJs that are very experienced, the only thing I would say is keep on doing what you're doing and share your knowledge and,
Right.
help others. And I think that's, the best.
Are there ways you do that?
Yes, I do. Often, let's see, how do I do that? So, I tell people about different places they can go to learn about music. I've sent people links.
Yeah, you said people ask you, so that's maybe one of the things. Yeah.
Right. They ask me. Now, one person, I could think of, like, on an individual basis, several people. One, just as an example, asked me if she could be my apprentice. And I said, well, it's flattering and all that. And I said, but the way I would like to help you, and I've helped a few people to begin with, is I'd like to, send you some links, and I'll be happy to talk with you as you explore them and maybe give you some advice. But I'd like to suggest some links for you to get some background online, and suggest that you, with the library that you have, because most of them have, developed a fair, decent number of orchestras and tangos. And I say, try to, develop a tango too, and we can take it from there, and I, give you advice that way. But people have asked me to do workshops and things like that. And I haven't done that. And I feel like a lot of my information is very general. And I've seen, like I said, the one Russian fellow, I think he was from the Ukraine at the time, this was during the pandemic, even though we might still be in the pandemic. I think I could do something like he did. In fact, he cited some of the sites that I went to, but I haven't done that yet. I'm not sure. I think that there might be other people that are more established and well-known that might come across better because more people will listen to them. But I'd consider doing something like that in the future. But generally, I help people on one-to-one. I give them advice about different sites. They ask me about some of my music. They're telling me, what about this song or that song? And I say, well, maybe that could go well together also. So it's more informal, the way I do it. I point people to where they can get some good information. I make some suggestions. And that's been about it. Sometimes some people want to find out where I'm DJing next, and they come along and then they ask me a little bit more information, but I tell them, don't ask me during the cortina, ask me maybe during the first song, of a tango.
Yeah.
They ask me and I give them some information specific to what they're interested in.
Yes.
That's been my, the way I've helped more informally. And also I encourage people to start, DJing at practicas if they're ready. And I give them a little bit of advice about that.
Yes. So who knows for the future? Who knows what else you may be doing? Because I don't have a strong IT background. I could say that that's another weakness. So I see
for example, I've not just the interviews that you've done, but other things that you've put online. So I remember one time you had some history on DeSarly, and you might have indicated how he had provided funds for street kids and orphans and that type of thing. And I have done that research myself a couple of years before, just out of interest, just that, for myself. And I never thought about putting it online. I liked the way you did it and the pictures you had. And it's a lot of work. It's definitely a lot of work. And I think, would I do something like that at one time, it's sort of a one-shot deal, not a series? Maybe. But the thing is, I've come to tango sort of as an older adult already. And it's not that I'm focused on myself. I'm feeling as though I can give more at these events, DJing, than probably almost anything else that I can do. If I started out at a younger age, I'd be doing a realm of other kinds of things as well, I'm pretty sure. Will I do any of that on a one-shot basis? Perhaps, because I think it's a very good thing to do, but there are a lot of good people doing it, like you and some other people. Yeah. So that's the best, that I.
Yeah, that's what I've understood already in the beginning of this interview, that you just want to dedicate your time to being the best DJ possible, or maybe yes. That's not even about that, just about DJing. You want to dedicate your time to DJing and enjoying that. That's a very fair thing to do, because you could have also chosen to become a teacher, right? But you're that's not, right. Yeah, maybe because of your age, what you're saying, right. Maybe you just decided to focus on one thing and not all the other things as well. Well, that's very interesting. Let me see. Yes, maybe I had a question about like you have every person has this, every dancer has this, every DJ has this, like there's music we like and music we like less, and especially the question like how to deal with like having to play things in a way, because DJs also use certain things they know that work, but sometimes they might be bored of, for example, always playing Caló Berón, and or they might be bored of always playing Demare Miranda, but then they find that the other Demares are, less interesting to them, or maybe less danceable. That's just an example. But so what is your experience with those things?
Well, that's a very good question too. Well, first, let me say slightly differently from what you're saying, and then I'll get to what you're saying, is that there's quite a bit of music that I play that I don't enjoy a lot dancing to. But
yeah, that's
I like
another point. Yeah.
But I know that a lot of the dancers like dancing to it, and I play it and I enjoy it, and I enjoy listening to it, and I enjoy watching them dance. In terms of sort of getting used to or getting tired of playing the same thing, a little, but not much of that. And one reason why not much of that, and I'll go into why a little, is that there are some dancers, particularly playing locally in places that you're familiar with, and you see some of the same people, maybe not just at one milonga, but you see them at 2 or 3 milongas, and some of them so well, that they love certain songs, and they could hear that song over and over in the course of a day and enjoy it. So even though, I might not enjoy playing it over and over so much, I'll play it more than I would prefer for them. Okay, now in terms of not liking things, well, sometimes I might feel as though it could be, for a lot of dancers, too predictable if they hear El Flete, or they hear El Flete right in the first song of a tanda early on. And a lot of DJs like to play the early D'Arienzo in the beginning, because it's rhythmic, it's not too fast, and all that. And so I might, not play that song or other songs with it for a few tandas, but I'll go to places where I know that the people love to hear it. I'm going to play it. I'm going to play it, even if I played it the night before somewhere else, and 3 days before that, I'm still going to play it because they like it. But every once in a while, and I can't think right now, but I know in the last year or so, where sometimes there's been imbalances in terms of roles at the milonga, and not a large number of people. and maybe sort of a mixed level of dance levels at the milonga, I might do 3-song tandas for everything, which generally I don't do. And this goes off in my mind, and I say, what about that tanda that I used to play like a few years ago, when I DJ'd at a small place that typically they preferred 3-song tandas. And I haven't played, and it could have been like Biaggi, or it could have been DeAngelis, or something that I generally haven't been playing because I've been playing, I'm not been playing, Tango Club and Ricardo and, those, and it's just boom, 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 boom. And yeah, this would work now, but so that sometimes things that I sort of got a little tired of, or I felt like there weren't, dancers that were so interested, I say, this would go well here. So sometimes, even though I got tired of it, it comes back. Now, certainly your tastes change, and that's a factor in whether you might get tired with certain orchestras or songs for a while. But for me, like I'm saying, I might have been somewhat tired of it, but it came back. And it sort of like came back in a very refreshing way. And then sometimes something comes back and I go, yeah, I understand why I didn't like it so much then, but I really like it now. I hear that other layer of the music or something like that. And it's like, this is a lot better than I had thought. So it goes both ways, but I don't get really tired of anything, because generally when I'm DJing, I think, gee, I would have liked to play this too, and this one, and this one. And so I always feel like there's so much more that I want to do, and there's so much more I want to DJ. So it doesn't bring me down, and it's not a very heavy thought in my mind, because I think I started out with, pretty good tandas, not saying the greatest, pretty good ones. So I never feel like I played anything really bad. I think maybe once or twice I played one song in a tanda that might not have been so good, but that's about the best I could think, at least listening to other people. I had, one person that dances a lot, she said, that second song in the it was a little bit off. And I might have had something like that, people say to me, twice since 2017. So yeah, you can get a little tired or something, but the dancers are still number one for me. So that's the way I get over that.
Yes. Well, that's ultimately the reason you play, like, your job, right?
Yes, exactly. But I still have some surprises, not just with respect to whether I dislike or like a song so much, but the way things will be received. Generally, I'm pretty close to being right on target, and the floor is generally most of the time packed, but not 100% of the time. And there's always like one tanda, at least every other milonga, where a lot of people are not getting on the floor. And then there's sometimes where there's the same tanda at the next event, the floor is packed. Can I explain it? Not too well most of the time. So, but it's okay. And but there are different strange things that sort of have happened to me, and generally they're very positive while I'm DJing. I can give you an example.
Well, that's an interesting topic in general, like because we had so far we've had a bit of an almost academic discussion about some things, but then we can also talk about like the more I don't know if that's the right word, with esoteric experiences. So the less tangible things. So,
right. Well, the last encuentro where I DJ'd not that long ago.
In the US or
in
Europe?
the US. This was in the US. In the US. Most of my DJing has been in the US, some in Italy, and I hopefully in some other countries in Europe, but not too long from now. So at this last encuentro in the United States, it was a small encuentro, and there were 3 DJs and 6 milongas. So each did 2 milongas, and I also did the end or the closing one. And less than typical, the vast majority of people were there, and they stayed there to the very end. So I was happy about that. But a lot of good tandas were played by the other 2 DJs and myself, I think. in the other 5 milongas, and I wanted to keep the music kind of fresh. I didn't feel like I had to play 100% of the songs different from the last 5 milongas. That would have been really hard to come up with really good ones. But anyway, I was thinking of opening with, for the first valse tanda, with Pedro Lorenz, Mendocino, and some other of the popular ones. But the DJ in the afternoon, they played that. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to need something else. But also I had the feeling that these people would need a lot of energy in this last one, because they've been through a lot, but they really wanted to come out and finish up. I can tell they liked the set that I did the other day. And people were telling me, like, I won't be able to come right away because I got to pack, but I'm going to come after the first hour and catch all the rest because I want to be ready to check out, blah, blah, blah. So I felt good that they're telling. And so I said, okay, I haven't played this D'Arienzo valse tanda, and I was doing 4-song valse tandas then. But I'm gonna give it a try. And then I said, wait a second. But then 2 tandas later, I'm gonna play D'Arienzo tango, and I think it was with Moret singing, and it was upbeat. And I was saying, oh, but in this tanda that I have of the valse, I think 2 of the songs are with Moret singing, and then I have one with Chadway and one with Laborda. And I said, but it's fast, very fast. Maybe I shouldn't do it. I said, I don't know. I think they're going to like it. I'm not sure. I'm going to do it. I'm not going to try to do anything else strange. I have all these other, there's 5 other tandas of valses that are different, and they'll like those. I'm going to stick with it, but I wasn't sure it's going to work. And so that tanda, I started to dance. I don't dance a lot when I'm DJing, and one encuentro that I've DJed at, the organizer doesn't want us to dance at all during that time, so that's fine with me. But I rarely dance more than a little bit when I'm DJing. So I started to dance. I'm dancing the first song, and I hear something, and we're still in the embrace right after the song with the partner, and she says, they're applauding your song. This is the first song. So I opened up and I went like this, and I thanked them, but I was shocked because I've gotten applause after tandas, but never after a first song. So they liked the song a lot. I was very happy. And then at the end of the time, they applauded again. I had to jog back to my terminal. So it was kind of strange because I didn't know what was going on. I was like in a bubble. And then when I heard that, I was very happy. So these are kind of very happy surprises for me. So that's, I guess that's one example of that kind of thing that's a little strange. And another, like I mentioned before, I was DJing at a pretty large milonga in North Carolina, so out of state, because, several 5 hours or so by car from where I live. And there were a good number of good dancers there. And I was playing the first milonga tanda, and it was Canaro. And it was relatively slow, but it wasn't as slow as Milonga Sentimental. I don't remember the songs. And hardly anyone got up to dance. And I'm starting to think, well, maybe these people don't like milonga so much. And, maybe I ought to think about that. But then when I played the next tanda of milonga, the second one, which was much more upbeat. It could have been Troilo. I don't think it was Biaggi, but it was very fast and more complex. And I thought, oh, this, maybe I should change it. And I said, no, I'm going to stick with it. And so I played it, and the whole floor was packed. And can I explain it? No. The first tanda that I played, I've played that some other places. The floor was full. And so I can't explain it. There could be a lot of reasons. And I think sometimes you just can't explain these things. Now, sometimes if you see, I've had that experience one other time, similar experience playing at a retreat, which was small. And I went at a convention and I DJ'd there maybe 2 milongas. And then the first one milonga, people were not dancing hardly any milongas except for a couple of instructors that were there or dancing with partners, and they were having a good time, but most of the people were sitting. So then this is the most non-conventional thing that I've done at a milonga. I erased, from the next time I did a milonga, I played no milonga tandas. I played valse tandas in place of milongas, and so I did tango, tango, valse, tango, tango, valse. And the floor was packed the whole time. The people loved it. That's what they liked. And I did it. Now, would I do this at an encuentro or some other event? No, I don't think I would go that far, but I don't think I would find that kind of configuration of people.
Yeah.
And so, and I even said to to one of the instructors, who's also a well-known DJ in Italy, pretty well known. I said to him, I know you missed the milonga, and he said, you made a beautiful decision. It was fantastic. And so I felt, okay, this is good. So these are kind of strange things. And generally they're generally good, but I have to put aside trying to understand and know that I can understand why certain things happen. Generally not. You could guess at it. The same is very similarly as to why someone's not accepting your cabeceo. It's not you personally necessarily. It could be the music, could be they don't feel like dancing at that moment, whatever. It's the same kind of thing, but I'm very happy the way things are going.
Yes. So maybe it's a similar question, but what do you enjoy about DJing? Because I think we've already covered that quite a bit. Is there maybe something else you can, or maybe a summarizing statement that?
Yeah, well, I always enjoy watching the dancers enjoy themselves. I enjoy seeing their embraces. I enjoy when they give me a thumbs up. I enjoy when they come up to me at the end and they say they love my music. I enjoy when they come up to me at the end and they give me a hug. I enjoy when they say to me as they're leaving, see you around, brother. I enjoy when they're leaving and they say to me, where will you be playing next? Or when they say to me, can you come back here soon? I enjoy all that. I enjoy that a lot. But basically, I enjoy seeing people having a good time. Really, that's really what I enjoy. But of course, I enjoy the music myself. I feel animated a lot of times when I'm DJing. I'm like tapping my foot and things like that, and I just feel really good, emoting, and that's what I enjoy about it.
So do you also see yourself doing this for the rest of your life, pretty much?
As long as I think as long as I can function well for the rest of my life, yes, I can see that happening. I'm hopeful. I get up. I also enjoy DJing locally as much as I want to expand and get more involved in other kinds of events and in Europe and maybe Buenos Aires someday. I enjoy my local environment, and I enjoy. Recently, I DJ'd a couple of hours away by car in Richmond, Virginia, and so not real far away, and I love it because the people are so appreciative, and the group was so friendly. This is in Richmond, Virginia, at Tangeros, and I'm not trying to plug them, but the people are so friendly, and other people a few people that I know from the Washington D.C. area know about it, and they also think the people are very friendly, and it's a wonderful, warm, inviting environment for not just the people there and surrounding areas, but anyone that's visiting. It can feel like it's instant friendship. And so I like those kinds of experiences wherever they are, close to home. But I also particularly like opportunities to play for people, like when I go to Richmond, which is not that small, but there are people from small towns an hour or two away from there that wouldn't necessarily come to Washington, D.C., but the organizer sort of promoted me, and it went into the Richmond Tango Facebook area, and they said special DJ, whatever, and people became interested. And so I like the fact that, that these people might not hear the kind of music that I play, and they might enjoy it a lot regularly, and it's a really good feeling. So I hope to be able to do that, for a long time, and, keep this going as best as I can.
So do you think there are any obvious differences between the way people DJ in the US and Canada and Europe? Because you've experienced even at special events,
right?
You have experienced both sides of the Atlantic. So
yes, this is what I would say. So I would say I'm somewhat experienced. I don't see myself I wouldn't say I was vastly experienced, but most of my experiences in the United States, I've listened to some DJs around Toronto and Montreal in Canada, and also from the Vancouver area, and from Europe, a number of DJs, both live and also through Zoom, and Buenos Aires as well. So, but I can go a little bit more into depth about what I call somewhat experience, but I'll do that only if you ask me. So given that kind of level of understanding, I would say yes and no. Okay. So let's see, recently when I was at several milongas in Rome, for example, two of the DJs that I liked the best, and don't ask me their names because I don't know if I ever got their names, or I certainly don't remember them if I did. But they were in Rome, and I thought I liked their music a lot, but they played a lot like really good DJs that I like in the United States. And then a couple that I heard where I thought their music was kind of fair. These were not real famous people. Okay, I thought it was just fair. But was it different, the United States? Yes, to a certain extent. One played, several tandas of Pugliese, maybe 4 or 5. I'm not saying that could be fine for the people that were there, but it's a little bit more than what I would hear in the United States. And then there could be like 3 tandas of slow lyrical music in a row, which is kind of rare in the United States. And I don't know if it's I can't say it's typical of Rome or Italy. And then I've heard, like I said, a couple that were, more rhythmic, and I like that. So I don't think I can give somebody, real general, approach. I've listened to DJ from Paris, and I liked his music a lot, and it was generally pretty upbeat. I've listened to DJs from Portugal that I thought a couple of them were really phenomenal. One is Maria Jonas, or Jonas Maria. I liked him a lot. And another one who I liked a lot, well, it's not going to help because I think his first name was Carlos. That doesn't, yeah, but he was great. And at the Porto Marathon, for example, the DJs were doing 7-hour milongas. And they had, for 2 of the nights, I think 2 back-to-back. So you had 14 hours of, continuing music, but you did have a break of live music. One night of 2 sets for 1 hour, and one night 3 sets for 1 hour. So I thought that most of the DJs at the Porto Marathon, as an example, were quite experienced. They really had a good sense of the dancers, and there were a lot of dancers there, and they played really well. But I could say similar things about some of the DJs in the United States. So I wish I had, in a sense, more experience in Europe through almost every country, through Austria, and the Netherlands, and also go up to Scandinavia, and even Bulgaria, and also, all sorts of experiences. But so from what I've seen is, I think that there's some very knowledgeable and good DJs in Europe. And if, just from a relatively small sample, and I could, go into a few others, I would say my gut says that they're, probably, it's a rough guess, more knowledgeable DJs in Europe than in the United States. But the United States is one country, and certainly there are some phenomenal DJs in the United States too. So in terms of differences, I think if you wanted more refined sense of differences, you'd have to ask somebody that's been DJing maybe for 30 years in all these countries. But all in all, I think that it helps to know a bit about the milonga. If you're going to a milonga locally in any country, if you could speak to somebody that you understand or respect that goes there. And there's a lot of variation that I see in the same milonga with different DJs and different, and so, but generally, most of the time I enjoy it, and it's a learning experience. And but with the ones that might play a lot of slow lyrical music, sometimes I don't feel like dancing, even though I might like listening to the music.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So in general, like, I think you've already answered it maybe, like, but my original question was, do you find it easy or difficult to deal with other DJs' music, especially as you have become more experienced yourself? I mean, people tend to become more critical the
Right.
more they know or the more they DJ themselves. It's just I guess well, no, not everyone might experience that, but I personally do. So what? How about that?
Well, my Latin is not that good, but there in English, there's a translation for a common Latin phrase. There's no disputing about tastes.
Yeah.
So, and so I would say that that's one issue to keep in mind about other DJs and yourself, if you're a DJ. So what I would say is that I've been fortunate because most of the time when I listen to other DJs, I like the music and I dance. Now, sometimes when I don't dance, it's not because I don't like the music, but I might not enjoy dancing to it as much as I do listening to it. But then again, what I would say is that even for DJs where I might not like some of their music, where I would say I just don't feel comfortable with the tanda, the way it's put together, or something like that, I still like a lot of their music. You know, I still like a good portion of their music. I guess what I'm also would say, I'm very fortunate that a couple of things that I really don't like have not happened in music, have not happened that much to me. One of the things, for example, that I don't like is if I hear a really good song that brings the people out to the floor, and then the other songs don't deliver and they're quite different and they don't fit. I find that really disappointing. And it's like the dancers are stranded, okay, you know, to a large extent. That doesn't happen that often, but I don't like that. And I guess trying to think, there might be one other thing. It doesn't come to mind so much, but, you know, generally, if it's the mood, like having, again, for me, having 3 or more very slow lyrical tandas in a row can kill the energy. And sometimes that happens. And I don't know why the DJs do it, because you see that the floor is not that packed and keeps on getting less and less. So
They don't seem to
that
notice.
bothers me. That bothers me about the music.
They don't seem to notice, maybe.
Well, yeah, it seems that way, or maybe they're thinking ahead and they're so focused. Sometimes they might have their headphones on, but what I would say is, this goes back to an earlier question in part, is that I'm sort of in between the DJ that plays from a playlist and the DJ that does everything from scratch. And because I usually I could load up 6 to 8 hours of music for a 4-hour milonga and think about options depending on where energy might go. And almost all the time from that, what I load up comes out in the 4 hours. And sometimes I keep notes on my index card to make sure that I'm staying with the convention that people feel comfortable with, so they're used to knowing what kind of tanda to expect. And so I think that I've DJ'd a couple of times from scratch, and one time where I had to develop the tandas by scratch, and I did it and it came out well, but I felt I wasn't very relaxed because I kept on thinking about, well, I might want to play this song again, you know, oh, what am I going to do? And so I would keep notes, but in order to keep the music on pace and all that, I found that a number of times in the last 10 seconds of the last song of the tanda I'm playing, I'm just coming up with the first, song of the next tanda. And then I'm repetitively coming up in the last 10 seconds of a song with the next song. So I didn't feel real comfortable. Maybe if I did it more, I'd feel more comfortable, but I had to do it because we had some problem with the sound system at one point. And so I did it. And so I respect people that can do that, but I definitely like to rely on having some tandas that I put together before and then putting them into, the milonga. So I don't know if whether some of the DJs that, have those long, slow, tandas together might be doing a lot of this other thinking ahead, and they just put something on that they know people could dance to. I don't know. That bothers me. It doesn't happen a lot. But those things kind of bother me. And most of the time I'm lucky, the music is good.
Okay, maybe so last question. Maybe also something to do that has to do with feeling again. So what do you particularly enjoy about playing at, for example, an encuentro, which is something I have more affinity with than marathons. So it's just something I choose to ask you. For example, in an encuentro, or like what you said that you want to expand to more places, and so is there something you particularly enjoy about that experience?
Oh yeah. Yes, well, in particular at an encuentro, which I feel very comfortable dancing with, and I feel strong rapport with the people. Often it's a smaller event than a marathon generally, or a festival. I like the floor craft a lot, and the navigation, and the respect for the codes, and just the respect for people. And I feel very comfortable with that. And I like the fact that many of the dancers there are very familiar with the music, and they've been dancing for a long time, and they get along well with each other. And many of them dance with a lot of people. And I like playing most of my music. I would say the vast majority is from like 1935 to 45, the vast majority, but I do play some from the early 30s and some from the late 40s and 50s, and at a marathon or a festival, I might play one tanda of a modern orchestra, or, something from the 60s or something like that. But at the encuentro, I like very traditional music, and I like the way that people are dancing. I like the rapport, and I like going along with the codes and the whole setup. I like women or followers, whether they're male or female, on one side, leaders on the other side. Just very conducive. The events usually go very smoothly, and the people are very friendly. I find not that they're not friendly at other places, but there's a whole range of different types of people and different styles of dancing. And generally at the encuentros, it's a lot of milongueros, and I'm a milonguero. And so I like that too. And the events seem more cozy. The ambiance is more relaxed in general than many other environments, and I like that as well.
And if you're DJing, so
from DJing, I like all of those things as a DJ, but also I get a lot of people come up to me. I'm thinking about broadcasting what I'm playing now or what I'm going to play next, as the tanda, but I haven't done that. But sometimes they ask me, what are you going to play? Or they say, oh, by the way, what orchestra was that? What was the last song? And they come up, and it's very relaxed and comfortable. And I like being able most of the time to dance a little bit when I'm DJing. And that's good, because sort of being on the floor sometimes helps me a little bit. But I at the encuentros, I feel as though I can really play cortinas that will help to motivate and prepare people for tandas well, and they like it and they're familiar. I play maybe older songs that when they were younger, brings back memories for them, things like that. But and I can relate to that. But it's not that I can't relate to younger people. I can at other events too, which I play different kinds of music. So I feel I can relate very well to the people, and they're enjoying themselves, and I'm enjoying myself DJing, and they're just a lot of big smiles while they're dancing from the followers that look over the shoulder, and they know they're coming close to where I'm DJing, and they give me a big, smile and things like that. It's wonderful.
Is there like one special memory from an encuentro, DJing an encuentro you have?
Oh, just one. It's really hard. to come up with just one. Well, I guess I do have, let me, one of the last ones, and I could come up with a few. So I think the last encuentro I was at, the tanda ended. I was in this is not when I was DJing. This is when I was dancing, but I was actually DJing, but I was dancing at the time. And we were in embrace, and just for at most a second, maybe less than that, the followers at the end of the song sort of looks up at me just a little bit, and just this big grin on her face, and I have a big grin on my face. And then she immediately, less than a second, goes right back into the embrace, you know, really firm. But the photographer at the event caught that of me smiling and posted it. And I thought the photographer was magnificent. I had no clue, you know, and just caught it at that time to catch my big grin. And so that is one thing I remember. And I remember things similar to that, and just great rapport with the people, just feeling wonderful. Yeah.
Well, I think you have a great DJ career ahead of you still.
Thank you. I hope, yeah.
And I was very glad to hear some of your opinions and views, and yeah, listen to your experiences. So yeah, that was a great interview. So thank you for today, and hope to meet you in person at some point at one of these events. Who knows?
I'm looking forward to that someday too. Thank you very much, Lucas. Have a wonderful day. Bye.